Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the grand finals of PK Clan Tournament number 4. This is game number 5 in the best of 11 series between Garja and Boneng. Of course, both competing for that. Yes, we've heard that one before, Interjection. So, in the south of the map here, Boneng in the colour blue today, taking the Sioux. And the Sioux is a very interesting civilization, actually. One that I haven't featured on the channel before, and that higher level players seem to shy away from, and that we haven't really seen at all in the PK Clan Tournament 4. And I guess Boneng kind of pioneering the way for the Sioux. The Sioux, certainly an interesting one, as I said, have a very distinctive playstyle that either works or it does not, and we'll get on that in a little bit later on, I suppose. But let's switch over to, of course, his opponent, Garja, in the north of the map, in the colour red today, taking the Iroquois. And let's talk about score for a moment, because, you know, not score as in 17 to Garja and 14 to Boneng, as you can see in the top right there, that I can toggle on and off with the F4 key, but no, not that score. The score, as in how many games has Garja won, or perhaps not won. If you don't want to hear the score, then perhaps skip about 30 seconds into the video. And, you know, I don't understand why people are like, no, don't talk about the score, Interjection, because you'll ruin the other games for me. We're on game 5. It's the one tournament finals. You haven't seen the other games? Alright, well, if you don't want to hear them, fair enough, skip ahead. But Garja currently only on 1 win, and perhaps that's why he's taken the Iroquois. Perhaps, you know, one of these stronger civilizations in a 1v1. Certainly, well, this map favours them pretty well as well, since, of course, they have really, really big treasures, and as you can see, has converted a polar bear there. Now going to use that polar bear to Amadeus Explorer to easily bring down that other polar bear and grab himself some nice treasures. 160 XP, really, really big. But his opponent, Boneng, on 3 wins. So, will Garja be able to win this game and perhaps bring it back up to 2-3, closer to kind of the equalizer or such? But actually, Boneng only now just coming into the the other side of the map, across the river where all the big treasures are, and perhaps he was going to steal that treasure, but a little bit too slow, and now coming in to do some damage on this polar bear here, getting some free damage in. Garja switching, of course, now onto it to try and kill, of course, that Boneng's Explorer. He's going to run away, since, of course, that speed is so quick. So fast, and just getting a few nice free bits of damage off on that polar bear, going to make it less useful for him with regards to treasure collecting. So if a guy wants to tank the damage on the polar bear rather than his explorer, the polar bear won't be able to take as much damage since it'll die, and certainly just nice. 3 settlers now on the way for Boneng, but Boneng turned the fog of war on. The first thing he did was scout this side of the map, and rather than going on to the other side, you know, where all the big treasures are, he decided to get the smaller ones. And, you know, the only reason I can think that he did that was because, well, for example, on Great Plains, you start with lots of beaver treasures and, you know, those small muskrat treasures. Here's this one here that he's kind of not actually noticed in the black map there, but you can usually on Great Plains send your explorer over to your opponent's side of the map and steal their 30 coin and 40 coin and whatever it is that they have on this map, 40 XP, and I believe there are coin treasures just that spawn close to your town center on this side. And of course, the Iroquois always build their trading posts. It's the first thing they do. So denying his opponent the smaller treasures before using the Explorer's really, really quick speed to get onto this side of the map, and almost stole 160 XP if he'd been a bit quicker. There was the possibility, certainly, to. But here, tanking the damage, as you can see on that polar bear, has converted it, and using the polar bear to take the damage. So, of course, the Sioux Explorer retains more of his hit points and will be more useful in the colonial age. But there is that. Boneng now sees that perhaps these explorers, well, clearly they're in combat with something, and he spotted that, coming over here to perhaps steal 150 coin, a really influential treasure, but at the moment he has 900 food, could be clicking up. I think he's going to be a bit late. He'll be a little bit embarrassed, I suppose, once he notices it. They're coming in for the 150 coin. Will it pay off? Of course, that concentration not perhaps on the food pile, not getting the 150 coin. Garja just slightly sooner, 1,000 food, almost 1,100, and now starting to kill, of course, these Guardians, and that area damage really coming into effect for the Sioux Explorer now. A hand attack of 6 with area 2. Garja, knowing that there's area damage, moving the Coyote away from the other thing so the area damage doesn't come into effect. But Boneng, noticing the fact that the Coyote was low on HP, switching to the Coyote to kill it off with one last prod with his giant stick that the Sioux Explorer has before switching back to the polar bear. But now the age up in queue, and as you can see, Boneng already then in the colonial, Garja already in the colonial age. Garja here shipping 5 settlers, upping the market, since of course he got 150 coin and can get hunting dogs really, really nicely. But no, cancelling the 5 settlers shipment and now sending 4 Kanya horsemen. Does this suggest that perhaps Garja has learned his lesson from the previous game and has decided to take a look or keep an eye on what his opponent's doing, and has noticed that Boneng has hit up really, really, well, a little bit late, and is instead sort of, you know, he's up late, I'm going to send 4 Canyas instead and be aggressive and take advantage of the fact that he is hit up a little bit later, because we saw, of course, Garja, or Boneng, actually had a ton of food sitting in his inventory before he clicked up, he was perhaps a little bit too focused on that 150 coin treasure that he almost managed to get. Though I do kind of find that conclusion a little bit unlikely, and I think the change in build here that he suddenly decided to do is probably less likely to do with the fact that he's seen that Boneng's up a little bit slower than he normally would be. It could be, certainly, but let's talk about the Sioux playstyle here for a moment, because actually, oh no, perhaps not. In Iroquois scouting party now being shipped, Garja going full YOLO here, going for a really, really fast rush. Of course, going to have 5 tomahawks out of the barracks really, really quickly from, of course, that town centre big button, and 6 tomahawks now on the way. 4 Kanya horsemen, of course, arrived and now are halfway across the map to meet these, and he's going to be in his base, raiding his units really, really quickly, and the Sioux can be a little bit susceptible to early pressure since, of course, well, They take a while to get off their feet. Once they can mass bow riders up, since of course, let's take a look at Boneng and see what he's up to. Collecting mostly food and coin with his settlers. 5 bow riders in production there, so it really does kind of indicate that he's going for a bow rider heavy strategy. No houses, because of course you don't actually need houses as Sioux, similar to the Huns on Age of Empires 2. An engagement going on here. I didn't expect Garja to engage this one. It looks not like a favourable engagement for him, and that Boneng has, since he's just popped out his 5 bow riders in a really nice spot, will switch over to Garja, and you can see that these 6 tomahawks here, plus 5 from the barracks that have just been trained, are about to arrive at the fight, and perhaps if he waited for them, the engagement would have been a lot more favourable. You can see him trying to, of course, get into hand combat a lot of the time with these units, but Boneng running the cavalry around so that the hand attack damage won't, of course, take effect. Tomahawks have a 14 times 3 against cavalry. But certainly, if he perhaps waited for all of these units to be in the same place, then this engagement might have gone a lot better, especially since now he's sending 7 Aina, which of course have that ×2 multiplier against ranged cavalry, which is such the bow riders actually have. Here, trying to get into hand combat, as you can see, but moving that bow rider back, that's what I was talking about earlier, so of course, the hand damage here doesn't come into effect, and he can only really use the ranged damage whilst they're kind of walking around in hand mode, not really attacking anything, taking damage from, of course, the town centre and the bow riders, but Boneng really easily actually being able to repel that, since of course having the town centre fire, though he's only just managed to train 2 more bow riders instead of getting 5, since his town centre, you know, all of his units have been idle. But here we see, I believe, 6 Seatam bow have just popped out to help defend. Of course, must be feeling a little bit pressured from this guy's early start, since of course he's been shipping military units. But as I was saying, the Sioux can be a little bit susceptible to early pressure, and civilizations like Ottoman will just rush them with Janissaries, and that'll be the end of that. But as I was saying earlier, actually, the Sioux playstyle is a unique one that either works or it doesn't, and a lot of players will switch over to Boneng. We'll switch over to Garja. We saw, of course, he was sending 5 settlers as his first shipment, but decided to cancel that and went full YOLO on us. Well, the Sioux just try to raid you, as you can see here, bringing in these bow riders, and they're strange in the sense that, some might argue broken, that they are essentially the Dragoon or Cavalry Archer style unit, but don't have the negative multiplier versus settlers. They do 20 damage straight up, stopping Garja from working here. Now, Garja coming in with his units, of course, that colonial pressure, being able to ship lots of units, 7 Aina, and now following up with 6 Aina, just as aggression, going to stop the Sioux player from taking his hunts and going to just deny him some food. But, as I was saying, originally we're sending 5 settlers, and, well, the Sioux will just try to be really, really aggressive, but a safe way, I suppose, to play against Sioux, if you have good hunts, and if you're a good player, and you can, you know, make sure that your settlers aren't going to die to those raids, then, you just sit there and boom. The Sioux try their best to stop you booming by killing your settlers and try to secure that advantage. But if you can just survive until like the 15-minute mark, you know, that's the end of the game really, because the Sioux economy just drops off if they can't get enough raiding in, and they rely on trying to kill your settlers in order to stay in the game. And here it looks like we have another engagement. Of course, perhaps going to try and focus down the Explorer, since of course that makes all of the Sioux units move much more quickly and it makes them more effective at raiding. And of course that's 100 XP there, but plenty of units in here to really help actually bring that fight down, and it's really not a favourable engagement for Boneng. You can see the early pressure perhaps didn't initially engage very well, but has a nice score lead, and I think at this point in the game is in the lead, because really all he needs to do is Garja just sit here and just keep his opponent off his hunts, and if he can do that effectively, then really Boneng isn't actually going to be able to mass that many kind of units before, well, he's not going to be able to mass many bow riders, and certainly Aina, a very easy unit to spam, very cheap, and costs a really easy resource to get a hold of, the fastest resource that you can gather in the game, and Aina have a ×2 multiplier against the bow riders, and that is primarily, it seems, what Boneng is training at the moment. Boneng knows he's not going to be able to use these, of course, to engage, and he's going to have to do his best to keep his settlers working, and I think we'll take a look at Garja. With the Fog of War on, he could come in here, of course, and stop these from working, but isn't doing so. And I think that is he needs to keep an eye on that really, to make this colonial aggression actually pay off. But as I was saying earlier, now sending 5 settlers. The Iroquois actually have a 4 settler shipment as well. He doesn't seem to be running the 4 settler shipment, but if you can say, especially as British or say other European civilizations, just sit in your base and boom, and try your best to not let your settlers die here. Being idled again, 16 settlers not gathering just due to these 5, of course, 5 bow riders, and it looks like losing a few units here unnecessarily. You got to keep an eye on that, because these are, of course, 100 resources each, these Tomahawks, and that's basically 2 Tomahawks, 200 resources that just walked into his town centre by mistake and died. But providing you can keep these settlers from working and stop them from working, then he should do reasonably well. But go Boneng, just using these 5 bow riders to really pressure Garja. Anyway. Yeah, but Iroquois, they get a market, right? And, well, he built a market, he chose to. You got the hunting dogs upgrade, and they don't have steel traps, fair enough. And you got a trading post, that really helps you out with your economy more than you might think. But here, doing what he needs to do, keep these settlers off working. And at this point in the game, Garja on 29 settlers, we'll call it 30 since one's about to pop. Boneng on 27, though he has sent his 4 settler shipments, bearing in mind, you know, yes, Garja's not running a 4 settler shipment, but he could. And usually, say, if you just play Boomy against Sioux, then by the 15-minute mark, 15 between 17 minutes, they just drop off, and then you just mass up enough and push out and win. But apparently going for that kind of colonial aggression today, and it seems to be paying off. At the point, has a stronger economy. Normally would have a 4 settler shipment to send additionally, but doesn't have it in his deck. Fair enough. Perhaps, you know, the nature of the strategy was to be aggressive. But here, losing some more settlers, and these are going to have to, well, they're going to get head off by these, bringing them back towards his town. And I think he's going to start losing that kind of settler economic advantage that he's gained up over by pressuring, of course. But coming back in to kill some settlers, really needs to keep an eye on this and permanently stop them from generating resources. Of course, the settlers on the coin mine and near this hunt that he can kill. And, of course, this hunt as well, he needs to keep an eye on that. But Boneng doing a really good job. More settlers going down, just using these bow riders to keep the pressure on. And I think if Boneng can keep this up, then Garja's not going to be able to mass as many units as really he wants to. And here we see some Aina, of course. Perhaps he's training them, perhaps it was a shipment. Either way, it's Aina. Very, very strong against the bow riders here with the ×2 multipliers. But as I was saying, I think if Boneng can keep the pressure on like this and keep these settlers, like these settlers are only just starting to get back to work, and that's a lot of resources that Garja is missing out on. He's not going to have quite as many units, and then we see 3 grizzly bears just about to pop, but this is actually quite a strong shipment, and now he's coming in, of course, to engage the settlers again, as he should be doing, but he doesn't know the 3, of course, Honcho, the pet grizzly bear is here, plus the rest of his army is going to come in, and hit the other side of his army, these, where was it, the units, these, of course, Aina are on the other side of the map. They're not with the rest of the army, and these, like Honcho the pet grizzly, he is a beast. Literally, he is a grizzly bear, like a wild beast. 32 hand attack, 264, of course, hit points. They're essentially a 3 cavalry shipment, but they are not countered by tomahawks because they're not actually cavalry. And, of course, Honcho, really, really strong, 32 hand attack. He's just going to rinse these, of course, Aina. And the Aina here trying to, of course, focus down these bow riders because that is what they're really good against. But with these 3 kind of, like, grizzly bears just mauling away at these Aina, this doesn't seem to be going so well. And I think Boneng doing a really, really good job of coming back here. And I think, honestly, I do think Garja was in the lead. This is a really nice comeback, because all Garja needed to do was maybe collect resources next to this war hut, and I mean, given his hunts were a bit bad, I mean, there's not really any hunts around his base, and these settlers only, like, walking across the map again, they're not gathering. The resources being missed out on here is huge, and I think Garja, if he could have been gathering all of that time that, you know, he was been raiding and stuff, he would have had a much larger army, and that engagement with the Honcho, the pet grizzly, would have just gone so much better. But here, yeah, he just needs to, he's put up another war hut, trying to secure some hunts, as you can see, and Boneng just going to keep the pressure on with the War Chief Explorer there. Doesn't do a lot of damage to the settlers, but the bow riders do, and they increase the speed at which the bow riders can move. That is the bonus, of course, of the Sioux War Chief, and it makes their raiding much, much better. And losing so many settlers here, Boneng on 29, Garja on 30, so only just slightly ahead, and Boneng now has the initiative with a larger army, and Garja's economy has just not been working out for him this game. I really think he had the advantage, and it seems that he's just managed to he's been given away. Just, yeah, I mean, his hunts were bad, but he could have been collecting perhaps by this war hut, and if he'd been able to collect food safely, then mass the army that you need. That engagement with Honcho, the pet grizzly, would have certainly gone a lot better. Now only just getting back to work, and calling the end of the game. I was not expecting that. Garja giving up just there and then. Let's take a look at the post-game and see how many settlers, of course. That is the, as you can see, fairly even throughout the course of the game, actually. I think that's down to raiding. You can see here, actually, he was really far ahead, well, would have been, but you see a settler lost here, 1, 2, 3, 4 there. He would be a lot further ahead, and if, of course, all those settlers were gathering, you can see the all resources gathered, it's fairly even. And for the most part, Garja actually ahead, as he should be playing as Iroquois compared to Sioux. But I think he could have been so much more ahead. You see these gaps where they're not climbing like at a steady rate. It evens out. That's where his settlers are, of course, in the town center, and it's not ideal. And that, wow. Okay, so Garja taking it up to, well, no, not at all. Boneng taking it up to 4-1, and this might be getting a little bit out of hand for Garja. Perhaps though he'll bring it back. But thank you very much for watching, everybody. That is Sioux versus Iroquois, and what an excellent match it was. Boneng really coming back there, and thank you very much for watching, but I will, of course, see you next time.